Three's the crowd, three's the hard way. Still working on a title for this, but Ain't the Singleton, People Span, you know me, expandtheboxscore.com, Jim Day, Fantasy Taz, Full-Time Fantasy Network. We've rebranded ourselves to come back and give you something hard-hitting, fast-paced. We're going to go over 3 players, 1 running back, 1 wide receiver, and 1 tight end. And the parameters for this are the running back has to be somebody outside of the top 24 in PPR formats, wide receiver outside of the top 36, and tight ends outside of the top 12. So Jim and I are each going to give you 1 player we like for this week that are outside of those requirements, and we're going to give you our best case scenario and our arguments for why. So let's get this thing going right away. Start with the running backs. We have Mark Walton versus Devin Singletary. Jim, you're vouching for Devin Singletary this week. Somebody I was big on him during the whole NFL draft process, finally seeming to get his time in the spotlight. Why do you like him in week 9?
Well, I just like the fact that he looked a little better in week 8, had a good game against a tough Philly defense, at least against the run. Ended up with good fantasy points. Only rushed 3 times for 19 yards, but he caught 4 passes for another 30 yards and a touchdown on 6 targets. The targets are what I like. I don't really care so much about what he does on the ground. I want to see him involved in the passing game. So I'm looking for that a lot. In last week's game, he had 68% snap count to Gore's 29%, and he had a 19.4 target share while he was on the field. So this is a great matchup for him. But my one concern is that Washington isn't a great defense, and they could very well be playing from ahead, and we may see a lot more of Gore. But I do think they want to get Singletary more involved in this offense going forward, seeing what they have for him for next year. So I think Singletary's still a good play, even though Gore will see more snaps this week.
Yeah, it's hard for me to go against anything that anybody has to say about Devin Singletary, but I went a different route here. I went with Mark Walton. One of the few trades we saw of this much hyped and anticipated NFL trade deadline was Kenyon Drake getting moved out of Miami to Arizona. So Mark Walton, this backfield is basically his now. So take that for what it's worth. But as much as I wanted to believe that Kalen Ballage was going to be the long-term play here, I'm still a University of Miami fan, which means I'm certainly happy for the former Hurricane. I'm going to go the psychological route with this one, Jim. As bad as the Dolphins have been, the Jets are right there with them. Yes, my hometown New York team. And not only are they tanking as well, but they have Miami twice on their schedule and the Bengals once. So they actually can control their own destiny as far as the NFL draft is concerned. They can be the worst team in the NFL if they're able to be worse than the Dolphins twice and the Bengals and finish with the worst record. And not only is that on the table, but the trade deadline exposed some major problems for this Jets defense. They traded Leonard Williams away. And do you really think Jamal Adams is now going to go all out for a franchise that he doesn't trust or believe? This is kind of like the Trent Williams route for Washington for me. Jamal Adams, to his pissed offness aside, CJ Mosley is still sidelined as well. This isn't the vaunted Jets defense we were hoping for. Walton has got 25 rushing attempts to Ballage's 6 over the past 2 games. He's also out-targeted him 13-1 over the last 3. This Jets defense is tied for second in rushing touchdowns allowed with 8 on the season. They rank 6th worst amongst the position in PPR leagues. If you're looking for an upside play, I think this is the first dance in the end zone that Walton will get to do as a pro. So that's who I'm going with. I know Jim likes Devin Singletary. We're both going with AFC East guys. So let us know, who are you siding with here at the running back position between Devin Singletary and Mark Walton? Those are your 2 options. Those are the 2 reasons we're giving you. Let's take it over to the wide receiver position. I'm going with Deontay Johnson. I'll get into that in a moment. But Chris Conley, Jacksonville breakout metric freak when he got drafted by Kansas City. And now he's starting to take off with Gardner Minshew. So what are you liking about Chris Conley in Jacksonville this week?
Well, first of all, I love his quarterback. The stash has been playing great, and I think this kid is going to be excellent going forward. But even outside that, he's a big playmaker for this team, and they need him that way. Most of the other receivers are hurt or possibly out. Marquise Lee is on IR already. D.D. Westbrook is dealing with neck and shoulder injuries, and right now we're not sure if he's even going to play this week. So I love what they're going to be able to do, and they're doing it against the Texans defense that's 31st in the league against opposing wide receivers. They're just getting torched. They're second in yards allowed, and they're tied for first with the most receiving TDs allowed. So, they're getting torched through the air. I expect Minshew to do a lot of that. I know Chark will have his good game, but as we saw last week when he needed to, Conley stepped up as well, coming off his best game of the season with 4 catches for 103 yards and a touchdown on 7 targets. He's had 7 targets in both of the last games. The kid is fast. You give him that many chances, he's going to beat you with one of them, especially against a poor secondary like Houston.
Well, listen, Jim, it pains me to say this. If you've been following the FF Champs After Dark show that Jim and I were doing, we've had some back and forth with the wide receiver 2 spot for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So it pains me.
We were both wrong.
We were both wrong, and it pains me to say this, but James Washington has squandered his opportunity to take the wingman role in Pittsburgh, and this has, in fact, become Deontay Johnson's job. With that being said, I don't think it's as final as others seem to be making it, and I'm not going to completely write off Washington or proclaim Johnson being locked in just yet, but for right now, you have to like the trend. This week, Pittsburgh faces the Indianapolis Colts, whose defense actually ranks 24th against the wide receiver position in fantasy points per game in PPR formats. Now, they haven't been torched by opponents, but they have given up some big games to the likes of Kenny Stills, Byron Pringle, and Mohamed Sanu. So, in other words, those wide receiver 2 types. Listen, the Steelers' backfield has some question marks this week. Johnson has put up 3 PPR performances in the teens, including in 3 of his last 5 games. And I think there's an opportunity for the good times to keep rolling for him. So while the trend is up, I'm going with Deontay Johnson. As much as I don't want to say that, it is what it's become. So the rookie is the guy I'm going with. Between Chris Conley and Deontay Johnson, who's the wide receiver that you're siding with this week between Jim and my proclamations? That's what you have to face. Let's move it over. Last position we're going to cover today, the tight ends. 2 good ones. Jonnu Smith, Tennessee Titans, starting to maybe emerge a little. He was well-regarded coming out of college. It's taken a little while sitting behind Delaney Walker and what the Tennessee Titans offense seems to think of the tight end position. But my guy is going to be TJ Hawkinson. So, Jim, take it away. What are you seeing in Jonnu Smith this week that you think he can continue his success from recent weeks?
Well, this is a team that likes to utilize the tight end. They always have. They've had a great one for years in Delaney Walker, and I love Delaney Walker. But, again, he's dealing with injuries. This is probably going to be the final straw for him. Yeah, I expect him to be gone after this year. And this is the kid that they're going to be moving forward with. And like you said, this kid was a workout beast. His spark numbers were off the charts when he came out, and he's got all the talent in the world. Coming off his best week with 6 catches, 78 yards, and a touchdown on 7 targets against Tampa Bay. Tougher matchup this week against Carolina. I get that. But at the same time, Carolina's really faced no good tight ends except for Kittle. And Kittle actually had a good game against him, 6 for 86 yards, in a tough matchup. So, look, it really comes down to, I just like the fact that the team will always utilize the tight ends, and Jonnu is the next man up, and I expect him to have a decent week this week. Again, with the tight end, you get to double-digit points, you're pretty much guaranteed a top 12 finish.
You mentioned the tight end for scoring touchdowns. To me, that seems to be what the only play that we're looking for outside of like the top 3 or 4 big names at the position. That seems to be the only thing we're looking for week to week. Well, TJ Hawkinson was a highly regarded draft pick coming out of Iowa, tight end U, as some are calling it these days. But Jim, do you remember week 1 when he had 6 receptions for 131 yards with his touchdown, and everyone was saying, "You see, I told you so." Well, we haven't heard from him since. And in fact, his 6 games haven't added up to surpass that week 1 total with yardage when he's accumulated just 109 in those 6 contests since. But he still exists. And that game 1 still exists. And he is that good. And he's had some touchdowns called back that he should have scored. And sometimes, them be the breaks. But he's maintained a decent target share prior to last week's silent day versus the New York Giants. And now he gets an Oakland Raiders defense that has given up the 3rd most points to the tight end position per game and has allowed 6 touchdowns in their last 7, including 2 to Darren Fells last week. I mentioned earlier that Hawk had some scores called back by penalties, but this will be the week he reminds us again why he was the number 8 overall pick in the draft. I like TJ Hawkinson. Fire him up. He's got a great matchup. He's got too much talent to continue to stay silent. We saw the upside. We saw what week 1 produced. I don't know if it's going to match what week one was. That was a phenomenal game, but he's going to find the end zone. He's going to get a touchdown, maybe two. So this is a guy I really like at the position this week. Those are your two options between Jim and I for tight end. TJ Hawkinson, Jonnu Smith. Who are you siding with? Who are you going with? Who do you like this week? Let's recap, Jim. Running backs, Mark Walton versus Devin Singletary. Wide receivers, we got Deontay Johnson versus Chris Conley. And for the tight ends, we got Jonnu Smith and TJ Hawkinson. Those are your options. Those are your choices. 3 the hard way, 3's a crowd. I don't know if the numbers work, but 3 players, 3 positions, 2 of us, 2 choices. Let us know. Leave them in the comments. Respond to us on Twitter. Hit us up. Let us know who you're agreeing with. Whose arguments did you like more? Jim, of course, is with Full-Time Fantasy Network. I am an affiliate of that. I want to thank my site, expandtheboxscore.com, for providing these tremendous detailed stats. Make sure you go check out and get a subscription yourself so you can see every player. That's going to do it. Hope you like this new format. We'll see what it becomes.
I do want to add one thing, though. We will be going back each week and reviewing our picks from the week before to see how we finish so we can let you guys know. But I do want to say that I think we should have one rebuttal of each player for each of us just to get a little more on depth here. My only problem with Mark Walton is it's the Miami offense. Their offense is only averaging 11.6 fantasy points a game for the running backs. Look, Drake was what he was. I think Walton's is along the same lines as Drake in what he'll do. So it's not so much I don't like Walton. It's just the fact that I don't like this offense. I just don't think they could put a lot of points on the board, even against this defense. So for that, it really comes more down to that. And if they do put points on the board, more than likely it's going to be Fitzpatrick making a couple of big plays.
Well, to what you said in rebuttal to Devin Singletary, I really don't have much negative to say, but we've seen Washington's defense show up at times, so I think they could stifle the run. You still have Frank Gore there, of course. And the Buffalo offense, the team has been good, and I love Josh Allen, but I don't know that they've been great for fantasy purposes week in and week out. There hasn't been that much consistency with that. So I would say maybe that Singletary, this is one of the inconsistent weeks you could see. And while the writing might look good on the wall, it might not necessarily add up. Let's move over to the wide receiver position since you want to rebuttal on your Chris Conley take. I don't necessarily have any problems with Chris Conley either. I mean, listen, we both think alike in a lot of regards, and some of these players, it is what it is. But the Houston Texans, listen, I think that they are now going to turn the corner. If this is going to be the playoff team we expect them to be and make the deep run that we all thought they were going to make in the beginning of the season, I think we start to see them turn something around. They just brought in, Gary and Connolly in a trade a couple weeks ago, so they added some help to the secondary there. I think they can limit a little bit of what Gardner Minshew. I think they can scheme a way to contain the magnanimous rookie. What would be your rebuttal to Deontay Johnson?
Not really. Again, like you say, I like the kid. He's playing well. I think he has taken that number 2 job. Look, as I said in preseason, as we argued about, there's something about James Washington that is just not showing up for coaches. It was the same problem last year, same problem this year. It was a perfect spot as a second-year receiver to step into that number 2 role, and he just didn't take it. He's not doing something that is making them mad at him, or he just, a lot of it last year was he couldn't read defenses and he was always making the wrong cut coming out of his turns. And that was what was really got him basically benched. And I think we're seeing a lot of that now. They're using him on the field, but they're using him more as a blocker, like a Hines Ward type blocking wide receiver, as opposed to a catch the ball type wide receiver. So, I just think I like Deontay Johnson. I don't really have a ton of rebuttal against him. I think he actually could have a really good game. I like Chris Conley with a couple of big plays in this one to go over the top.
All right, so what's your beef with TJ Hawkinson then at the tight end?
I love Hawkinson. He's my favorite tight end that came out this year. I think he's going to be the next Gronk. I think he's got all the tools to be a great tight end in this league, but there's 2 problems. First of all, they don't always use a tight end. Detroit has been known to not always use a tight end. Heck, they threw Ebron away, considered him useless, and then he goes to, the Colts and has a great season. My beef isn't with Hawkinson. My beef is the fact that they have so many mouths to feed in that passing game. like we saw last week, it was Amendola. The week before, it was probably Marvin Jones. The week before that, it was Galladay. And just so many mouths to feed that it always seems to focus more on one than in getting it spread around.
All right, that's fair to say. And for those same reasons, that's why I'm going to say that I don't know that I love Jonnu Smith to show any type of consistency. This is a team that has kind of felt like, oh, we have a tight end at times. So I don't know that can continue. I think, you look at this matchup with Carolina, the run is going to be hopefully significant for what Derrick Henry and the Titans can do. I'm really not sure what the Titans offense is, so I don't really want to put a lot of stock or a lot of faith in trusting that. But you know what? Listen, he's been playing well, and he's kind of got the role to himself now. And we talked about how he was coming out of college. So this is a guy that could have flash, some consistent weeks, but I'm just not going to buy into that consistency yet. And that will be my rebuttal towards Jonnu. But again, these are the three players we're each vouching for and giving you reasons why not to. Let us know what you thought. Who do you side with? Who do you like? Hit us up, Jim, on Twitter @FantasyTaz, and me, of course, @PeoplesPen on Twitter. That's going to do it. Hope you enjoyed it.